So this chapter is all about solving equations. So what does that mean is we need to figure out what is the value of the letter. The letter is called the variable. And the way we figure that out is we move all the numbers away from the side of the letter onto the other side. We do this by doing opposites, right? We said, hey, if that number is adding or subtracting to your letter, to get rid of it, we add or subtract. We do the opposite. So here, subtracting, we add, right? If it's dividing, we do the opposite, and it's to multiply, to get rid of the opposite. And if it's multiplying, we divide, right? Those are the basic rules for the whole chapter. The questions are just going to get more complicated applying these rules. So if you most of you guys had a good handle on these rules, so we're going to go slightly more complicated situations. So today, these are called two-step equations. Last day's stuff was called one-step equation. Now that name isn't quite accurate because when you were doing the stuff from last day, some of the questions took quite a few steps to get to the answer, right? The one step is referring to, hey, there is only one number on the same side of the letter, right? And however many steps it takes you to get rid of it. Most of them you can get rid of in one step. Now we have two-step equations. If you look at all the questions for day 2, you'll notice if we split at the equal sign, right? On any of these questions, you cover up the side that doesn't have the letter, just like we did before. You'll find that there's 2 numbers over there. So this is called 2 steps, because you need to get rid of those 2 numbers. It may take 2 steps, it may take more, okay? So this was sort of the ending of grade 8. So we're going to do a little review of grade stuff and kind of morph these questions to grade 9 stuff, right? So now the problem is, so let's go to the first page here, right? We go, okay, our goal here is to get the letter by itself. So remember that's called isolating the variable, right? But now there's 2 numbers to get rid of. So you have to make a choice. Which one do you get rid of first, right? And the order technically doesn't matter. You can get rid of the 2 first, or you can get rid of the 4 first. But in grade 8, we taught you our order. That order says, hey, if you have 2 numbers on the same side of the letter, chances is one of them is multiplying to the letter, the other one's adding or subtracting to the letter, right? And in grade 8, we said, typically, we will get rid of the adding and subtracting one first. It's usually just easier to do that one first, right? Then get rid of adding or subtracting. Get rid of that number first, then go for the one that's multiplying or dividing, okay? Usually that is the easier route, all right? So if you go here, and I look at this question here, I have a 2 sitting here. Let's do orange and blue, right? What number do we want to get rid of first? Evelina? The 4, because that one's subtracting to the letter, right? So just like we did back before spring break, to get rid of a number, we just do the opposite. This one's subtracting, so the opposite subtracting is adding. And so when we do this, remember you stack them like this, adding plus 4 like that, and we have plus 4 on the other side, right? Whatever you do one side, you have to do the other side, right? We do this because minus 4 and plus 4 make 0. So those go away. On the left side, we're left with our 2w. What do we have on the right side? 12. 8 plus 4 is 12. Okay? So then we go back to the side of the letter. You go, oh, it's not by itself. So we still need to get rid of all the numbers that are over there. So now we need to get rid of that 2, right? So how do we get rid of that 2? Remember, ask yourself the question, what is the math operation between the 2 and the letter? You gotta divide, yeah. It's multiplying. So opposite of multiplying is dividing. And we do fraction lines, right, for dividing. So divide by 2 like that, right? And divide by 2 like this, right? And the 2's cancel each other out. They disappear because 2 divided by 2 is 1. We're left with the W. On the other side, 12 divided by 2, 6. Okay? And that's it. All right? Do you write that down, all right? So remember, the goal is when we're canceling is to make zeros. When we're adding and subtracting, -4 and +4 makes 0. When we're multiplying and dividing, the goal is to make 1s to make the numbers cancel out. Okay. So now, I said you didn't have to do adding and subtracting first. In grade 8, that's what we always did first. And most of the time in grade 9, we are going to do adding and subtracting first. But there might be times where it's more advantageous to do the multiplying or the dividing first. We'll get that to in later on lessons, all right? But I'm going to explain to you how that works, right? So when let's do the exact same question, but this time we are going to do the multiplying and dividing first. We split at the equal sign, right? You go, okay, we want to get rid of this 2 first, right? And we do the exact same thing. We just do the opposite calculation. So that's multiplying by 2. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is divide by 2, right? So you go divide by 2 here. You go divide by 2 here. You go divide by 2 here. So there is a slight change to what I've done in the past. Okay? So usually we just say, hey, what do you do to one side, you do to the other side. That's easy when you only have one term. The true rule for multiplying and dividing is if we multiply one side or you divide that side, you divide everything, every single term. Adding and subtracting is still the same as what you learned in grade 8 and what we learned in the first chapter. Add and subtract once per side. With multiplying and dividing, the hard part is you have to do it to everything, right? If I cut this side down by half, I need to cut this side down by half. Everything cut down by half. That keeps everything in balance, okay? All right, so now we do our cleanup. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that goes away. What do we write down underneath this 4 here? We get clean these two things together. What do we got? Right? What do we get? Minus 2. We got 4 divided by 2 is just minus 2. On the other side, we have 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Okay? Then we still have our line. We got this here. You go, okay. Cover up the side that doesn't have the letter. You go, that 2 is, the W is still not by itself, so we need to get rid of that 2. Right? So we go opposite. Is minus 2 plus 2. Okay. Plus 2. Plus 2. Right? And those go away. And 4 plus 2, 6. You get the exact same answer as before. And you should, right? It's the same equation. Long as you do the calculations correctly, it doesn't matter which order you go in, as long as you do it correctly. So adding and subtracting, it's once per side. I increase this side by 5, I have to increase that side by 5. multiplying and dividing, everything gets multiplied, everything gets divided. If I cut this side down by half, everything here gets cut down by half. And everything over here gets cut down by half. And that was sort of automatically done in the previous lesson because you only had one term on one side and one term on the other side. So that always happened. Now that our equations are looking more complicated, you just need to be more careful about that. Okay? That's it. Right? So, for most part, we're still going to stick with this one. Do the adding and subtracting one first. Once we get into questions with fractions and brackets, and that's into like look at day 3, not so much day 3, but once you get into day 4-ish, day 5-ish, we'll start doing the other way, okay? And I'll get into the reasons why later on. So let's go to the second page. Let's do a handful of questions here. We'll do the top 4, and then we'll get ready for the mini final, all right? So, after we're done our notes, all right? All right. Go through our steps, all right? Split at the equal sign, all right? Cover up the side that doesn't have the letter and spot the other 2 numbers, right? And you go, okay, now make a decision of which number you will get rid of first. The 2.5 or the 1.5? Which one are you going to go for? Gage, which one first? You could, right? But we're going to do the adding, subtracting one first.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the purple one. The plus, all right? So you go, opposite of adding 1.5 is subtracting 1.5. So you go minus 1.5 here, minus 1.5 here, all right? So the 1.5s disappear because that makes a 0. We have x over 2.5 left over. We're working vertically, right? Try not to work horizontally because you start making mistakes with numbers. And we just grab our calculator and we do that calculation and you go 0.8 minus 1.5. I'll clear all that. 0.8 minus 1.5 and you get negative 0.7. Okay. We cover up the side that doesn't have the letter. You go, is the letter by itself the variable? No, it isn't. So we need to get rid of all the numbers. Now we need to get rid of that 2.5. What's the calculation? Do we add? Do we subtract? Do we multiply? Divide? Brooklyn? Multiply. A fraction line means divide. Opposite of divide is multiply. And remember, for multiplying, you write it to the top. Times 2.5. Times 2.5. All right, so 2.5 on the top cancels the 2.5 on the bottom. All right, and then we just grab our calculator and we do that calculation. So you have negative 0.7 times 2.5, and we get negative 1.75. Right? So if the question has like decimals in it, just grab your calculator and do the calculations. Add and subtract the numbers, multiply and divide the numbers. If the question has whole numbers in it, like this one below, we are going to leave our answers as fractions. You're not going to turn it into decimals. Okay? All right, let's do this one here. All right. Which number are you can get rid of first? Curve up the side. Doesn't have the letter. The 4 or the 2?
4.
The 4. Do we add 4, subtract 4, multiply, divide? What do we do? Subtract. It's positive 4 minus 4. That makes 0 minus 4. The 4's go away. We're left with a 2x. What do we have on the other side? 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. We cover up the side that doesn't have the letter. We need to get rid of that 2. How do we get rid of that 2? Divide. So it's multiplying. Opposite of multiplying is dividing. So divide by 2. Divide by 2. The 2's go away. and just leave your answer as a fraction. X is a half. That's it. Okay. Let's do this one. Split at the equal sign. Cover up the side that doesn't have the letter. Do you get rid of the 3 or do you get rid of the 7 first? 3, yeah. Right? How do we get rid of that 3?
Add 3.
Sorry?
Add 3.
Add 3. So this was a tricky question from like last day. We had something like these. Right? You don't want to use this plus sign here and write down minus. Remember, the goal is to make zeros. And you have a negative 3, you have a positive 3, so that cancels each other out to make a 0. So if you go plus 3 there, you need plus 3 over here. The 3's go away, we're left with the 7x. What do we have on the right-hand side?
5 over 7.
Ooh, you're one step ahead, all right? Yeah. So 2 plus 3 is 5, all right? Then you want to get rid of the 7. What do you do, Samira?
You divide.
Divide, the fraction line, divide. The 7's go away. X is 5 over 7. And we're done. That's it, right? So now, stuff like this is going to be the tricky situation, okay? All right, let's do one final one. We'll take a break, then we'll do some warm-up for the final, mini final. All right. Split at the equal sign. Yes, Lemieux. Owen's first. Yes, Brooklyn.
0.23.
Yeah. And how do you do it?
Minus.
Minus. It's adding, so you subtract it once per side. Right? 0.23's go away. You're left with x over negative 0.6 over here. And the other side, grab our calculator. 1.93 minus 0.23. We get 1.7. All right. Okay. The x is still not by itself, so how do you get rid of that 0.6? Yes?
Multiply.
Right? By what number?
-0.6.
Yeah. It's negative 0.6. You want to multiply by negative 0.6, right? Multiply by negative 0.6. Those go away. Then you have 1.7 times negative 0.6. And we get negative 1.02. Okay. And that's it. Right? So there's some more trickier situations, which we'll talk about on Friday's class, and we'll do some word problems as well. But we're going to stop right there. Give you guys a couple minute break. I'm going to hand back your note sheets so you can use that for a review, okay? And ONU.